Hello there, friends. This is Spencer Michaud. Today we're going to be talking about the full moon in the third decan of Aries. So I hope that you are doing well wherever you are joining us from. If you are here with us today, please let me know in the chat. Let me know where you're stopping in from and how fall is treating you thus far. And yeah, we'll welcome you in. We've got a few people stopping in here. Rachel Fletcher is here. What's up, Rachel? Says, hello, it's a gorgeous October day here in Roanoke, Virginia. Oh, that's nice to hear, Rachel. Always nice to see you in the chat, and hope you're having a lovely afternoon over there. It is a beautiful day out. I'm hoping to get outside a little bit after our session here today and soak in some of that early fall sunshine. Michelle is here. Says hello from Bonnie, Scotland. Nice to see you, Michelle. Hope you're doing well. I love your little thistle there. It looks like a little kind of like one of those little truffle trees from the Lorax, right? It's just a little beautiful little persona there. So thank you so much for joining us from across the pond, Michelle. It's always exciting to see my international friends stopping in. Susanna is here. Says hello from rainy Finland. Ooh, getting some rain over there. Susanna, I hope you're doing well. Everything's going well in your neck of the woods as well. Some beautiful pictures I'm seeing of all the fall colors from various parts of the world. Susanna lives on a beautiful lake, and seeing some of her beautiful fall creations with fall flowers and leaves. So thanks for sharing that with us, Susanna. Fionn, what's up, Fionn? Fionn is joining us. Says, good evening. I'm stuck waiting for an hour in a rural train station here in Ireland. Well, Fionn, I hope we'll help you pass the time a little bit with more ease today, talking a little bit of astrology. So thanks for joining us here today, my friend. Hope everything's going well your way. Andy H is here. What's up, Andy? Nice to see you stopping in from England. I'm glad to see you in the chat, my friend. Hope everything's going well your way. And yeah, it's nice to see you stopping in, my friend. Always enjoy hearing updates from you and your life and what's going on over there across the pond as well. Candy Corn is here. Hello, home with my daughter, homesick. Oh no, Corinne. Well, hopefully this will be an easy, relaxing little live stream for you, and I hope that your daughter feels better soon. Katrina is here. What's up, Katrina? Says hello from West Virginia. Nice to see you. That's a new name in the chat. Thank you for joining us, Katrina. And I love this picture of you and your huskies, or at least one husky, and maybe a hound of some sort over there. That's really cool. I love seeing people's animal companions. So welcome, Katrina. I hope everything's going well for you over there in Appalachia. Laura Elizabeth is joining us from Vancouver, Washington, checking transits in my son's chart as he just made an offer on a house. He's a triple Capricorn. Well, we'll see what's going on. We've got a cardinal cross full moon coming up, so we'll try to break all those pieces down for you. But yeah, a lot of things coming to a head. So we'll see if we can get out ahead of it, right? But congratulations to your son, and hopefully he gets the house. Renner is here. Says hello, all greetings from Kent, UK. Man, we've got our United Kingdom friends stopping in today. That's awesome. Good to see you, Ren. Hope you're doing well over there. Tom says namaste, Spencer and everyone. Nice to see you, Tom, joining us from sunny or rainy San Francisco, whatever is going on over there. But nice to see you in the chat. And then Robin is here. What's up, Robin? Says hi, Spencer and crew. Robin from Hellsburg, California. Can't wait to hear what's coming up. Nice to see you, Robin. Hope everything's going well your way, my friend. Okay, so we're talking full moon in Aries 3. So I'm going to break down all of the details. I'm going to break down where the sun is, where the moon is, what planets are hosting those particular planets. We're going to look at the aspects. We're going to do an I-Ching. We're going to do an animal. We're going to take a look at the astrology for the week ahead, basically, as well. So stick around for all that. Before I get to all that, just have a couple announcements before we get going. This is we are in enrollment season here over at Spencer Michaud Astrology, and the fall 2024 class offerings are almost in full swing. We are going to be starting our Dignity and Devotion webinar tomorrow, my beautiful partner Tanya Andrews and I are going to be talking about the moon. We're going to be talking about how the moon functions in the chart, how it functions in the different dignities and debilities. We are going to be talking about astrological magic, giving you some tips and tricks on how to remediate challenging placements within the chart. We're doing this for each of the 7 traditional planets. It's going to be amazing. Tanya is an incredible magical practitioner. She has a business called Third Coast Mojo. You should check her out over on Etsy. She's offering a deal right now too. If you sign up for the webinar, you can get this beautiful super moon box set for half off, which has some really amazing exalted moon Taurus goodies within it. But I hope that you'll join us for that. We've been working really hard on that, trying to coordinate, working together. I think we've put together a really nice presentation, and we'd really love for you to join us. So you can find that on my website, spencermichaud.com. You can click the Book Now button. You can sign up for the Moon webinar individually, or you can sign up for all 7 of those webinars and get a 10% discount. So check that out. Okay, that's tomorrow, Saturday, October the 12th, starting at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. I also have a book club starting on Monday. So our guided group study, the Hobbit Book Club, is going to be starting this Monday, October the 14th, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Super excited about that. We are going to go on a journey into Middle Earth. We're going to research all of the influences and kind of stories, mythologies behind Tolkien's Middle Earth. We are going to just enjoy reading the book together and kind of nerding out on fantasy literature, which I think is super fun and a needed respite from some of the really challenging things that we're experiencing as a collective right now. Yeah, it's going to be super fun. I'm really excited about it. I hope that you'll join us for that. We've got a really nice group coming together with that. And I'm hoping that it's the beginning of a much longer series that we're doing with the Lord of the Rings, potentially the Silmarillion. We're just going to go deep into Tolkien themes, and we're just going to bond over it. And I think that's going to be a lot of fun. So I hope you'll join me for that. You can find that at the Book Now button on my website, spencermichaud.com as well. And then finally, we did start Decan Walk 24-25 this past week, and we have an awesome group. We had a really nice first meeting. There is still time to sign up if you want to. If you want to hop in on that and you're like, oh, I missed out, I really wanted to do that, just send me an email. I'll help you get signed up. And we would love to welcome you into our little group, our little community, our little family, however you want to consider it. And if you're on the fence and you're like, oh, I want to do all of it, you can still sign up for the fall 2024 class bundle as well, with a free bonus Mythos natal 2-hour reading as well. I'm going to extend that until the next Decan class on October the 21st. So if you want to sign up for that, take advantage of that now, and hope you join us. All right, friends, that's what I've got for you today as far as our announcements. One final little thing. There is a Libra season sale going on. If all of those things aren't your cup of tea, but you really like the Decan stuff that I'm doing, the Libra Decans webinar is on sale for 20% off at the store button on my website. And then finally, if you are enjoying what you are, the content that you are consuming today, you can buy me a super chat here on YouTube with a little $ in the chat, or you can go to buymeacoffee.com, which is a Patreon-like support channel for content creators such as myself, and you can buy me a coffee over there and support the channel in that regard. All right, there we go. Announcements out of the way. You gotta do it. You know, it's one of those things. It's the necessary challenges of being a self-employed astrologer on the internet. Sometimes you got to talk about the things that support your channel. And you know what? Honestly, I'm really excited about these offerings. So I really do hope that you will join us for all of that. We've got a few more people stopping in that I want to welcome. KP is here. What's up, KP? Says, hi, Spencer. Now finally able to catch you live. So happy to be here. Kind of nervous about this full moon. Yeah, KP is stopping in from Cleveland. There's some tricky parts of the full moon. I'll be honest about that. We've got a square from Mars. We've got a T-square with Pluto. So we'll try to break that down. I will try to contextualize that and hopefully give us a pathway through it. I'm living through it with all of you. It's been a tough week. Tanya's dad passed away this week. on Sunday. So we've been kind of processing that while also trying to prepare for, our webinar and classes and trying to balance all of those things. It's a lot to process all at once. And I think all of us are kind of like, a little wrung out from the astrology, living through it. But here we are, we're powering through. I think that that's one of the things. I think that in my last few live streams, I've been talking about this week and the first quarter moon in Capricorn, that we're still kind of experiencing this Capricorn moon as of today, where we had an opposition to Mars in Cancer, potential family misfortune, while we're trying to craft some kind of ornate structure and working together with someone else to do so. And that's exactly how it played out in our experience. Just kind of trying to balance the grief process and mourning with, taking care of our responsibilities and being able to be present for our communities and things of that nature. It's not an easy thing to do. So appreciate all of the kind comments around that as well. But yeah, there's a lot going on. This full moon could bring in a peak experience of some of those challenges, So yeah, I appreciate all of that, friends. Ani, thank you for your condolences. Thank you, KP. Appreciate you. Yeah, it's a fact of life. Like, I think that I went through this a few years ago with my own mother passing sort of unexpectedly. And it takes some time. And Tanya's dad was a little bit older and was struggling with the challenges of late stage dementia, Lewy body dementia. And that disease can really accelerate really quickly. And so what I will say about all that is cherish the people that you have in your life. Appreciate them while they're with you. And, this life that we live is a very ephemeral thing. We're here for a short period of time. We have experiences and then we blink out, or we go on to the next adventure, whatever that is. So, I know that many of you have experienced some of these types of challenges, and this is what having community is really helpful for. So I really appreciate all of you and grateful for all of you. So thank you so much. Yeah, and thank you for these beautiful comments here. Yeah, if you're a fan of Tanya's, if you are on Third Coast Mojo or whatnot, just send her a nice message too. She's struggling a little bit, but we'll get through it. All right, friends, let's talk about this full moon, and we'll bring up the chart here. So I'm going to share my screen just so you can see what I'm seeing. And here we go. Oops. And then let's make it bigger. So one of the things that I wanted to show you is the lead up to this full moon. So if we go back in time first, so I'm going to go back a few days here. This is the 13th. This is Sunday the 13th. Let's set the scene for our full moon, because we have a number of things that are coming up this weekend that are going to we're going to be processing those things. So we have a Mercury-Pluto square, as you can see right here at 29 degrees Libra and 29 Capricorn. That's perfecting on Sunday. And at the same time, the sun is making a trine to Jupiter. So both of these aspects are going to be separating. Okay, so we have one positive, potentially harmonious aspect between the sun and Jupiter on Sunday, and then one maybe a little bit more challenging one between Mercury and Pluto on Sunday coming up. The full moon itself is going to be on the 17th, which I believe is Thursday. We can check that exactly, but I think it's Thursday. Yeah, it's a Thursday. So we're going to see Mercury ingressing into Scorpio. And this is going to change the tenor of our astrological makeup. Right now, with Mercury in Libra, we're focusing on making adjustments with whether it's within partnerships, contracts, and agreements, working together with others on some level. And when we see that shift for Mercury into Scorpio, we might be feeling our feelings a little bit more. I think this week we have been held in check a little bit. The I-Ching is going to really talk about this too. Part of the I-Ching talks about this week, without giving too much away, kind of dense clouds without rain, right? The all of the conditions are correct for some kind of release, but we're sort of being held back in some regard. And we've experienced that this week too, like a lot of emotions around losing a parent, but responsibilities that are necessary to kind of keep it together. And once we get past this time frame, maybe those feelings are going to start flowing a little bit more. And I think that that's what we might see with this full moon on some level too. Oh, Devin, thank you so much for the super chat, my friend. That's extremely generous of you, and I appreciate you. So thank you so much for the solar remediation. As a Leo rising, Libra season can be a little bit tough with the sun being in its fall. So I appreciate that. Yeah, and thank you so much for your kind words, Devin. And you know, we're kind of in the club now, right? Devin recently lost his mom, so I know that you understand these feelings, bud. And so just sending our love out to you as well, as we all kind of go through these challenging processes. Okay, so we've got this square with Pluto, the trine with Jupiter on the 13th, and we may have to root out some feelings and thoughts that are buried with Mercury and Pluto leading up to this full moon. And as we get past this Sun-Jupiter trine is helping us to make the adjustments that we need to make in our own needs versus the needs of others. Okay, so like that is one of the things that the third decan of Libra tends to talk about, is making these increasing that which is lacking and decreasing that which is excessive. And oftentimes it comes through how we relate to one another. That being the case because of an association with a spirit in that decan, that 10-degree section of the zodiac, called Nemesis, which is a goddess that helps restore right proportion to the twists and turns of fortune, of chance, of 2K. We'll talk about this in our moon webinar tomorrow, the difference between 2K, fortune, and Nemesis, which is again the goddess of restoring that stability and right proportion. So this is going to be Sunday, and we're also going to see on Monday one of our more challenging days. This is all the lead up to this full moon, right? So you can see on the outer ring, we've got the lead up and the full moon itself on the inner ring. So here we have the sun squaring Mars, okay? Or Mars actually is squaring the sun in the overcoming position. I guess the sun would be applying because it's moving quicker, while simultaneously Venus and Uranus are opposing one another. So this Monday could be a peak challenging experience, right? We have Mars making that overcoming square to the sun. Again, Mars in Cancer tends to bring us misfortune, severing, separation, conflicts. And when it's in Cancer, it happens in our most sacred spaces, our most, hopefully, our safest spaces, our domestic situations with family, with our places we normally would look to for support. And we're being separated from that on some level. And that could have a little bit of a challenge with our relationships, okay? So this is an opportunity for us to make adjustments. I think that the other thing I will say about Mars in Cancer, third decan of Cancer, that is going to be true for this full moon moving forward. Austin Coppock in his book, his excellent book, 36 Faces, talks a lot about Cancer 3 as the dichotomy between scarcity and abundance and shifting between one or the other. The Four of Cups is the tarot card that is syncretized with that decan that Mars is in right now. And it shows a figure who has had enough. And he says, I'm full, I'm satiated, right? And he's refusing this extra cup from the hand of the divine or whatever. And there might be this feeling like we've just had enough. We're overloaded with emotions. We're overloaded with pleasures of the body. There are luxuries associated with this decan, and sometimes Mars in this decan craves those luxuries and can do things that are out of alignment with integrity to try to achieve those luxuries. So I would be careful about trying to pursue excess, right? Like this decan asks us, how much is enough? Have we had enough? What happens when we have an excess? Do we share it with others? Do we give when it's necessary, or are we holding on too tightly? Like the opposite decan in Capricorn, where Pluto is at, okay, because this is going to be a part of our discussion, shows the Four of Pentacles with a figure holding on very tightly to their material resources. So we have this refusal of more and then this kind of accumulation, gathering energy. And we are building towards a Mars-Pluto opposition where we may have to start asking ourselves questions about how much is enough. Where do we draw the line for how much we need, and how can we share with others as well? And when we T-square all of this with the sun and the moon in Libra and Aries respectively, a lot of those questions are going to be challenging. How much is enough in our relationships? How much is enough for us individually? How much do we give? How much do we receive? Is it balanced? Is it equal? Is it fair? I've been saying a lot on this channel that equal and fair aren't necessarily the same things. Just because relationships are not always 50-50. Sometimes you need to pull more of the weight and the load for someone else, and that's actually what is fair. This is something that actually brings things back into harmony. And when we keep score and we keep track in our relationships, that's a recipe for us to be sad, disappointed, angry, to feel this kind of like, I don't know what the word is. It's righteous indignation. Okay. I've seen this play out in my parents' relationships and other relationships that I've observed, is that when one party seems to be pulling the weight for the other, eventually those tables will turn. And what you expected doesn't always happen. Like you never know when someone's going to get sick. When, if you've had one party that's gone out and earning the income out in the world, and then something happens to them, then the other person has to step up and take care of them. Like you never know. Like the twists and turns of the Wheel of Fortune can be maddening sometimes, right? So I think it's really important to check in with your people, with whoever you're sharing energy, your life with, to see what they need and what you need, and to start making agreements around that, and to be careful about desiring things that are beyond your grasp. One of the things that I think is super important about living without stress is living within your means. I think that a lot of the stress that we see with people that have a scarcity mindset, and don't get me wrong, there's real scarcity out in the world. I'm not one of these, creative visualization manifester type people. I was at one point, but life as a 12th house sun has kind of beaten me down enough to be like, sometimes things are up and sometimes things are down, and you don't always have control over it, right? So, but what I will say is that sometimes we do go through periods of scarcity, and sometimes we do have everything that we need right at our fingertips. And to be able to live within your means will stop you from feeling this feeling of lack all the time. I know some of the wealthiest people in my life or experience who are never happy or satisfied, because even though their income is extraordinary, they can't live within their means. They're always outspending their means. And that's a recipe for disaster. It's something where it's never enough. And I think that when we try to fill an emotional hole through physical means, that's when we run into these problems. And I think that this Mars Pluto opposition could speak to trying to fill our emotional holes, our emotional wells lack through potential material means. And I see this not only in individuals, but in society as well. I think that we are at an inflection point in Western civilization where we really do need to start asking ourselves, how much is enough? Do we really need to continue to expand and expand and expand? Do we need to keep chasing these false ideals of what abundance really is? Because I think that we've been fed some propaganda from capitalism where we feel like we have to just cannibalize each other to survive, and we have to grab as much as we possibly can to survive. Now, I say that as a falsehood because if we're really being honest, if you want to hear just my opinion about it, which I don't often share my very strong opinions about some of these things, but the powers that be are trying to turn regular people against each other so that they can continue to profit. And I'm not talking about necessarily just the government or something like that. I want to avoid things like conspiracy theories because I think those can be just as harmful as trying to make sense of the truth. But I do think that there is a reality with people that are very, very wealthy. I'm talking about oligarchs, like big corporations, things like that, who want to continue to benefit from turning regular people against each other. And we see that throughout election cycles. We see that through trying to, this is a real pet peeve of mine this week, trying to tell people that the government's trying to control the weather. I don't understand that. The extreme weather that we're seeing is absolutely a problem, and it absolutely has human sources. But those human sources are the burning of fossil fuels, the raising of the climate temperature through years and years and decades of abuse. It's not through some random, like, secret government program. And I'll tell you what, like, I can't fathom that type of thinking when people are suffering. So that's what I'll say about that. But this particular arrangement in the sky is going to ask us questions about how much is enough. How do we relate to each other as a society and get what we need to survive while also sharing, right? And also not taking more than we need so that we continue to heal the earth rather than exploit it. That is one thing that I am very verbal about on this channel, and I will continue to fight for that, is for the earth, for trying to come into some kind of harmonious, balanced relationship with it. And I think that that's something that affects everyone. That is not necessarily a political argument, discussion, etc. This is something that we're all trying to band together to figure out. And one of the things that I do enjoy seeing, I don't know if I enjoy it, but I'm heartened by some of these challenges when we face really difficult climate challenges, is seeing how people can band together to help each other. I think that is really important. This is one of my favorite folks out there. Fred Rogers talks about look for the helpers, right? Mr. Rogers, look for the helpers in these difficult times. And acknowledging that we're going through a difficult time as a collective is the first step. So this Monday, we could be really feeling some of the pain of that, the fallout from this difficult week as we build towards more revelations. Dimphy, thank you so much for your condolences. I appreciate you, friend. Ani says, apathy when we have more than enough, 4 cups. Greed when it's not enough, 4 pentacles. Absolutely. Yeah, Ani, the Pluto, the shadow power is very Plutonian. Yeah, one of the ways I've started to be able to contextualize this after reading Braiding Sweetgrass, which my good friend Devin got me hip to. Thank you, Devin, for that. Is the Wendigo mindset, the hungry uh, monster that is never able to be satisfied, and it comes through feelings of exile, right? So when we feel exiled from the earth, when we feel exiled from the abundance that it can provide for us if we treat it in a balanced, respectful way, um, that is something that we can hopefully begin to heal. This Wendigo greed mindset has led us to the brink of extinction and of disaster, where it's so I get so frustrated seeing the denialism around some of these things where, and I understand that we're all trying to just live our lives on a daily basis, but that is the one thing that does really start to frustrate me, is just, yeah, I don't know. I'll just have to take a moment to start processing that, but I'll move forward. Rachel says, I had to take leadership regarding family this week. One of mom's siblings could not live without drama, and I had to put my foot down on behalf of my mother's well being. Aries, Libra on my 10th and 4th axis. Yeah, see, right? Setting boundaries, very important, right? Seeing what we need to be able to create harmony. What is lacking? The increase of that which is lacking and the decrease of that which is excessive. So, yeah, one thing that I think that we don't think about enough with Libra in particular is that it is not just a Venusian sign. It is also a Saturnian sign. I like to think of the houses as being co-ruled by the domicile lord, in this case Venus, and the exaltation lord, in Libra's case Saturn. So there are some difficult truths that we have to come to in Libra season. We are trying to create harmony, but sometimes that harmonization comes through Saturnian boundaries, comes through Saturnian maturity, through recognizing when enough is enough. So that's really interesting to see in your chart there, Rachel. Yeah, good job, Rachel. Absolutely. And not easy for us to set boundaries sometimes. This is always, a lot of the times we would prefer harmony over setting a boundary. And the irony of that is sometimes you can only create harmony through setting the boundary. Paintings by Mare. What's up, Mare? Says hello from York Beach, Maine. Nice to see you, friend. Hopefully we're helping you inspire your creative process today. Tracy's here. What's up, Tracy? Says hi, lovelies. Hi, Spencer. Hope all is great. Yeah, we're hanging in there, Tracy. We're mourning the loss of a patriarch in our family, but we're finding condolence through community today, and I'm just really excited that you're all joining us here today. And thank you for just your patience with us as well. Okay, so this is we're still talking about the lead up to the full moon, the Sun Mars square, the Venus Uranus opposition. We may get some surprising news around Venus Uranus opposition as well. Like the Venus position in Scorpio 3 is related to glamorizing forms that have outlived their ability to give us vitality, right? Trying to keep something alive that has really already passed its prime. So there may be something in your life that is shockingly taken away, or that maybe we're composting, or that we are learning that, hey, this is probably not working anymore, right? Or this isn't actually inspiring me, or whatnot. So keep an eye out for that as well. And we are going to talk about planets in their exile, which Venus is right now, in the planetary webinars that start tomorrow. We're going to talk about the moon in its exile in Capricorn. We're going to talk about the moon in its fall in Scorpio, and how you might be able to work through some of those challenging placements, maybe even what some of the advantages of those might be. Every position has some kind of turnaround, I guess I will say. Like if you are born with a planet in its fall, there's nowhere to go but up. You know, you may be forged in the fire, you may be forged in the pit, I guess you could say, You may have to climb your way out of the pit, scratching and crawling, but it can get better. And there are ways to nudge it to get better too. This is part of what astrological remediation is all about. Astrological magic can help with that. And all of those things are things we're going to be talking about. Sunny D is here. Says, I live in the mountains of North Carolina. It's stunning the amount of help we received. I can't talk about it without starting to cry. I share this in case someone has lost faith in people. Oh, I love that, Sunny D. Thank you for sharing that. And I hope that everything is going well where you're at. I know that North Carolina was hit particularly hard by the recent storm. And my heart goes out to our friends in Florida as well who got hit by the second storm within a week. But yeah, like being able to see your neighbors and appreciate that. I think Tanya and I were thinking about this week too. While we were walking around our neighborhood in Michigan. We live in a small town. We live in a small college town, Eastern Michigan University, and it's maybe less than 20,000 people, like if you don't count all the students. And we just love walking around our little neighborhood and getting to know people. And we've had a number of power outages here, nothing to the extreme of North Carolina and what Florida are experiencing, but we went a week without power in the middle of winter last year and without heat. And just the ability of our neighbors to kind of come to our aid and to be able to find that community was really important. So I can also confirm that yeah, when there are good people out there and there are ways to support one another, especially in crisis situations. And it isn't all of the divisive political stuff, it just goes out the window when you are just seeing the shared humanity that you have with someone who is struggling and suffering. And I hope that we can lean into that as we move forward into what is probably going to be more of a requirement of us of building those structures and communities, because the weather patterns are not going to be improving anytime soon unless we make radical changes to the way that we live. We are going to have to learn to have this resiliency, and community is one of the foundations for that. Devin says, harmony is achieved and defined by what is absent as much as what is present. The difference between playing a chord on a piano and just pressing all the keys. Ooh, I like that, Devin. And that feels very Libra, dark part of the year, right? Experiencing loss can actually make you appreciate the things that you do have. And I think that I've felt this with the passing of some of my important family members. Tanya's feeling this right now, and we are feeling this as a family. And we feel this in moments of crisis when we're dealing with these crazy storms and things of that nature. So losing things that we thought were important, and some of these things are important, like our family is important, our homes are important, but it forces us to fall back on the people that we do have still in our life. It forces us to fall back on the community that we have. Even if we've lost our home, we still have home is wherever you are, right? Wherever you go, there you are. So these are really important things to remember as we get to this full moon experience. So that's Monday, the lead up. We'll also start to see this trine between Venus and Neptune on the 15th. Okay, so we have Venus and Neptune here. Here's Venus trining Neptune. This is just a really watery, we got a water grand trine here, between Venus, Neptune, and Mars, with Saturn in the mix. So just a lot of feelings, a lot of processing emotions. As I talked about before, Mercury moving into the first 10-degree section of Scorpio, it does potentially bring us into alignment with grief. That decan is syncretized with the Five of Cups. So we may be having an experience of ritualizing our grief on some level, whatever that may be. Like those of you who are in the path of the storm may be grieving the loss of people, community members, loss of possessions, loss of stability, loss of a feeling of safety. In our household, we're literally processing the loss of a family member. This is something where this is going to start activating that as we move forward. And with the Venus Neptune trine, I think that the Venus part of it shows us that these forms need to be returned back to the earth so that the energy and essence that once animated those forms can be liberated to find a new form. Now, that doesn't mean that we ignore the liberation process, the decay process, the return to the earth process. Okay, we need to feel that grief. We need to feel those feelings. We need to ritualize that. We need to bring closure to these things. But what I will say is it's very important to allow yourself to go through that release process. Because when you start holding on too tightly to those forms that inevitably life is going to take away. Life is going to basically take away almost everything from us on some level. I mean, death is the ultimate release. And when we try to hang on too tightly to physical forms, I truly feel that that's where suffering comes from. I don't think that we can avoid pain. I don't think we can avoid painful experiences. I do tend to believe that we can choose whether we suffer or not, which is an extension of that pain by a lack of acceptance. So this Venus-Neptune trine is an opportunity to release forms that are no longer serving us. Neptune is a great solvent in my experience. It dissolves things. But I think it's also very important that we don't over-glamorize the past, the forms that we're releasing. A lot of us might be, let's just take this as a collective kind of viewpoint. Many of us could be over-glamorizing the life that we have been living as a part of Western civilization. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean we were all bad or we were all wrong. Many of us were just trying to survive within the societies that we were born into. But this lifestyle that we are living that is fueled by oil, by plastic, by great consumption of energy, we may lose some of that and we may feel some grief around that. But if we try to keep that lifestyle alive when everything in the earth is telling us we need to make changes, that's when we start to commit greater and greater and greater atrocities and debaucheries. This is what the name of that Decan is, the Lord of Debauchery. So, like, for example, if you're still driving around in a Hummer, that gets like 5 miles to the gallon, that's hanging on to an old lifestyle that, number one, was never sustainable, and number two, is not doing your part. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, hanging on to something like that is knowingly in defiance of every source of information around you. And if you have a big all-terrain vehicle or something, I'm not exactly trying to demonize you, but it's time for a change if that's the type of experience that you're having. And it is hard to go against the grain when we have when we have voices in our community that are trying to make us feel less than if we choose to live with less. Does that make sense? I think that that is a real sickness, and greed will always try to prey on people's insecurities. And I think that's where we need to be very strong moving forward to create a society that actually is functional, that create a relationship with the earth that actually is reciprocal, is releasing this kind of susceptibility to these types of manipulations, if that makes sense. Oh, thank you, Tracy, for your support today. Appreciate you. How you doing, Lauren? Nice to see you, Painted Turtle. Hope everything's going well your way. We're talking about the lead up to this full moon. It's in the Venus-Neptune trine, where we need to release our attachment to old forms and return them to the earth. Return old lifestyles. And let me just also say this. I am not perfect in this whatsoever. Like I have some modern amenities. I have a cell phone. I use the internet and electricity and things of that nature. There have been various times in my life where I tried to live uh, swimming against the current. I still do on some level, but it actually can be pretty exhausting to continue to swim against the current over and over and over again um, as an individual. But the good news is that if we have collective movements, then the shifts, the currents start to shift, and that's more what we need to do instead of feeling like we're always just one individual, like trying to like keep our head above water in a stream that's bringing us closer and closer to extinction. Like, right? We do have individual responsibility, but we do need to hold the very powerful accountable as well. What's up, Aaron? Nice to see you. Hope you're doing well. I love your beautiful avatar there with this very cosmic picture. So nice to see you. Okay, so that brings us to our full moon in Aries. So that's our lead up. You know, we've got the Mercury Pluto square, the Sun Jupiter trine. You know, tomorrow, we are seeing Sun and Mars squaring and Venus opposing, and then Venus Neptune trine. And we're going to be seeing the separation of all these aspects moving up to the full moon. And it's important to see astrology in context. Astrology doesn't happen in a vacuum. Like the peak experience with the full moon is the result of previous experiences, previous actions that we've taken, and many of them could be the result of previous experiences from these particular transits that we're talking about today. Aaron says, this full moon is in my 7th house, opposite the ruler of my 7th, Mars in Libra in the 1st. Oh my goodness, Aaron, this is going to be a big one for you, activating your Mars. So we'll try to break it down for you, but as a Libra rising, I'm assuming, you've got that big grand cardinal cross, just pulling you in a lot of different directions. So hopefully we'll be able to contextualize some of that for you. So all of that being said, here is our full moon, 24 degrees of Aries and Libra, respectively. We have an opposition between the sun and the moon. We have a T-square with Mars in Cancer. And then we have this opposition from Mars forming to Pluto. So this big, grand cross, okay? So tension. But one of the things that's great about squares, oppositions, sometimes tension leads to growth. So I do think that there is opportunity for growth here that we might not always experience. I think that this week has taught me personally how to try to have balance between acceptance versus, I don't know, standards, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word. Being a perfectionist about certain things, like when you're just not at your best, trying to have grace for yourself and others, especially if you're working together on projects, is really important. And communication is the key with all of that. So this communication is going to be really important with this Grand Cross. The other thing that I think is really interesting about this is that we have this mutual reception between the moon and Mars. They are exchanging homes, exchanging domiciles. And even though Mars is in a difficult position, it does have some dignity by triplicity, which means that even though we're facing adverse circumstances, we may have the support of our communities. Sound familiar? Like we have like hurricane tragedies in North Carolina and Florida, but we're hearing a lot of stories of people's communities coming to their aid. So that is very interesting to me. We also have the moon very close to Chiron. Like the moon is going to be representing our ability to win over a hostile crowd. Okay, so this is the balance between making the proper adjustments, trying to tune into not only our own needs but other people's needs, while simultaneously trying to express our own needs in a way that brings people, that calls people in rather than calls people out. Okay? This is a Venus ruled section or decan of Aries, the Aries third 10 degree section. That means that we aren't going to be able to sledgehammer or double axe, Gimli axe our way through this challenge. We're going to have to use our charm. We're going to have to use our sense of humor. We're going to have to use our ability to sell people on why we should make these changes. Like, one of the challenging things about like talking about climate change and saying, well, I guess everyone's just going to have to learn to live with less, is that that's not sexy. You know, a lot of people are already struggling, especially when they see people who are taking more than their fair share. That's when you get angry, right? That's when you're like, well, that's not fair, right? So, you know, asking people who are already struggling to make these changes when they're just trying to keep their head literally above water now with like floods and whatnot is a tough sell. So how do we share our vision for the future in a way that is attractive to help people learn how to change? One thing that I will say is that the community that we have on this particular channel, everybody here in the chat that I've interacted with, is, from what I've observed, a kind and generous person, you know, and your mileage may vary with all of that, but I'm constantly surprised at the cruelty that I observe on the internet as well. And I think that what I feel sometimes, it's like, and this is more me just appreciating all of you, but sometimes it's shocking to see how negative people can be outside of a little community like this, and how the feelings that we have about binding together in community are not necessarily shared by the collective. And to be fair, the internet is a very ambiguous, amorphous shield that many people can hide behind. And sometimes the worst of humanity is the loudest. So that shouldn't get us all riled up and sad again about humanity. But it is important to realize that not everybody thinks the same way that a lot of us do in the astrological community or on a channel like this. A lot of people here agree that we need to make changes in the way that we live so that we can sustain our relationship with the earth. I don't always see that out in the collective. So how do we, the point being is, how do we take that feeling, take that message, and draw people in that may not give two shits about it, right? That are still on that Wendigo path of, well, I'm going to get mine and everyone else can get bent type of thing. So I think that that's part of this. I think that's part of this full moon T-square, is how do we make collective action attractive to those that may be mistrustful of not only that or us, but of the people that run things. You know, I think that that's the other thing. Like, I think healthy mistrust of authority is important. I have a healthy mistrust of authority, but I also realize that there's sometimes you have to work within the system to change the system. And if we get too far outside of it, then sometimes we disempower ourselves. So I don't know. I don't have all the answers. I'm just trying to look at this astrological chart and figure out what we're going to experience. So, yeah, Susanna says, so true. A realistic attitude helps. Absolutely. Susanna says, my moon in 20 degrees Capricorn is getting some nasty aspects. Yeah, you're right in the thick of it, Susanna. So I'd be curious to hear your story and how you might be feeling pulled in a number of different directions, potentially. Yeah, so we've got a number of Cap Moon people here. I've been doing a lot of research on the moon in exile for the webinar that we're doing tomorrow. And I think that, feeling a difficult relationship with sometimes with our bodies, sometimes with not necessarily having the resources we need to feel comfortable. That can be really painful. But it also gives you an ability to be resilient. I would say people with Capricorn moons have been tested by life, and they have a toughness about them that not everybody has, and that resiliency I think can really serve you well. Yeah, Aaron says we will survive. See, Capricorn is good at that at least, right? See, Aaron, you're speaking the Capricorn moon language. We will survive. People that have like Saturn moons, they are survivors, right? Because they've had to be. Okay, so let's start breaking this down piece by piece. This gives you kind of the overall vibe. We've got the opposition of the sun and the moon, the sun in a position of its fall, which is in a decan requiring adjustment, increase of that which is excessive, decrease of that which is lacking. We've got the moon in a section of Aries that is about winning over a hostile crowd, being able to sell our particular vision or ask for our own needs in a way that is not based on conflict necessarily, but on humor or charisma or being able to draw people in to our particular viewpoint. And then we have Mars showing us the challenges of both excess and scarcity, maybe craving things beyond our reach, but also bringing us conflict within some of our domestic situations that can be a little bit painful. And then Pluto, recently stationing direct. I believe Pluto stations direct today as I'm recording this to finally move out of Capricorn. This is the final test of Pluto and Capricorn, hopefully helping us to transmute or transform some of the physical structures that support us in life, our material structures. One of the things that big storms, like we've been seeing, show us is the lack of sustainable infrastructure. I know this has been a big concern in my area is updating the power grid so that when we do have these more intense windstorms, etc., that we just don't go dark all the time. Like we had this happen the other day. We had a really windy day literally last week, that blew down some power lines in my area. And if I hadn't prepared in advance I have a backup solar battery now, I wouldn't have been able to go live. It would have completely disrupted my afternoon. So becoming resilient, putting pressure on the powers that be to change the infrastructure, to improve it, to change the way we manage our resources. Those are all things that Pluto and Capricorn can help us through shining. I don't know if spotlight is the right word, but it's sort of like I always think of it as the plunger that's unclogging the toilet, and think about what emerges from an unclogged toilet potentially. So that to me is Pluto. All right, we've got more Cap moons chiming in. Cap moon here too, Rachel. It's the ruler of my ascendant. Yeah, Rachel. So you're a survivor, right? So like I said, dignity in the chart is not necessarily indicative of character. We have some incredible people in our community who have terrible charts. Like if you look at it objectively from a traditional dignity perspective. But they're some of the nicest, most resilient people that I've ever met. In my own chart, I have some really difficult planets in my chart, and while there are times that I've fallen short of the glory, like the chart does not necessarily define who you are as a person. It can define some of the circumstances that you faced, but then you have the ability to make the choice as to how you are going to react to that. And that to me is a gift that astrology can give us. It can show us what types of experiences we might have, and then we get to make the choice as to how we want to move forward. Ani says we need to make changes on how we hold leaders accountable and perpetuate systemic inequity, whether elected or self-appointed. It is a tough nut to crack. I agree 100%, Ani. And again, I try to, I'm not the biggest banger of the drum with certain political opinions on this channel, but for a number of reasons that I don't necessarily have to go into or defend I honestly, here's the thing. I, I've been reading this book that I really like. It's by Africa Brooke. It's called The Third Perspective. And one of her things is we don't owe the internet anything. Do you know what I'm saying? We don't owe the internet anything. Like, our opinions can be our own opinions. We can say or not say whatever we're comfortable saying. And that's sort of the take that I have with all of this. What I will say, though, is that yes, I absolutely agree that holding leadership accountable for systemic inequality is important. And one of the things that you see when you start diving into that is that all of this is connected. The challenges of greed, the challenges of consolidation of wealth, they affect conflicts overseas. We see like all of the issues people are having with like a hot button topic of this election is immigration. All of that, like the systemic changes from climate change, all of that affects that type of experience. The the refusal to move towards renewable fuel sources affects other changes that we want to see in life. So seeing it holistically is important. When we get fixated on one particular thing and fail to see it as an interconnected ecosystem or relationship of things, that's when we're off track. But yeah, I do think it does start with holding leaders accountable. And we can agree and disagree about what that actually means and how to do that. But I think that everybody at this point is realizing that it's not working, right? And that there needs to be changes. Painted Turtle says, with Capricorn, I always think of durability. Yeah, I think so too. Like, Saturn requires you to be tough through feelings of exile, through feelings of lack and scarcity. That's when you become resilient, right? You either have to or you perish. That's sort of the challenges of Capricorn, Sun, Moon, whatever. You see, Capricorn is a particular energy that is related with the winter solstice. So think about that. Think about that time of year in the northern hemisphere. There's not a bunch of things growing all around you. There's not this abundance of like fruit and vegetables. You're having to like eat the like things that you've stored over a long period of time. Hopefully, you're having to like, if you're in a cold climate, you're having to put on like your finest animal skins or whatever it is. Like if you were an indigenous person back in the day. And, it's the hunger moon period, right? It's starting at the very lowest part of life. Literally, the sun is at the lowest declination that it can be at the winter solstice. So being able to be resilient, you have to be to get out of that lowered position. I can't tell you the amount of Capricorn type people that started off with a really difficult early life, but through their grit and determination have changed their circumstances for the better. And I think that that's actually one of the real beautiful gifts of having placements in that position. Susanna says, I'm definitely having a difficult relationship with my body these days. Yeah, that's when we have the moon in fall or exile, sometimes our body doesn't do what we want it to do, or it brings us health challenges. It brings us a difficulty around that. So again, come to the talk tomorrow, friends. If you're on the fence about it, Tanya does great work with astrological magic. We're going to talk a lot about remediation. We're going to talk all about dignity and what that might mean for the chart. We're going to look at chart examples. It's going to be, I think, a really excellent talk. And she and I have worked really hard on it, despite difficult circumstances, which is very Capricorn moon. This is like the theme today. Aaron says, I have my ascendant ruling Venus in ruling Venus in mid-Cancer too, all cardinal all the time. This one is definitely for me. Yeah, this one's gonna light up your chart, Aaron, and hopefully you'll share your stories around it and how you were able to find resilience around it, and that we're helping you to inspire that resilience today. Hey, Laura's here. What's up, Benel Dell? Says, hi, friends. Yes, it's a Cap Moon party. Right, another of our Cap Moon friends chiming in, stopping in. Another very resilient friend that I've seen, you know, pulling a heavy load in their life. So glad you're here to join us, friend. Laura Elizabeth says, Pluto stationing direct today will be helpful, hopefully leading up to this full moon. I think so. I think that it'll hopefully bring some clarity about what we need to change. This podcast today, this live stream feels very Pluto stationing direct. We are dredging up some difficult topics today. We're talking about loss. We're talking about climate change. We're talking about how that affects the other organizations in society and the other challenges that we face as a community. It is a very platonic stationing live stream today. And we've got all our Capricorns chiming in because Pluto's just stationing direct in their area of the chart. Yeah, Ani says, time to plunge the cosmic turds. Yeah, right? I mean, that's true. Like, I do my best, friends, to try to be a positive, supportive voice on the internet. And to be quite fair and frank, sometimes that's not enough for some folks. Like sometimes you can get criticism for what you don't say rather than what you do say. And I try to keep it positive for the most part, but it is difficult to sidestep tragedy. And we shouldn't do that. We shouldn't spiritually bypass those things. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to talk about it every single moment of the day. Like sometimes we do need a break from those things while we recharge the battery to be able to move forward. And I also feel that gratitude is a huge way to create resiliency. Gratitude is number one. And I like to focus on the positive. And again, and maybe this is the Aries full moon coming out, like as content creators, as leaders, you don't really owe the internet anything. Like I like showing up and supporting my community, but at the end of the day, I don't owe any of you anything. Does that make sense? And I'm saying this from experience of experiencing some criticism in the last little while and kind of coming to terms with that. And I don't know how to express that in a different way, but you can choose how much you interact with the noise or not. And what I will say about that is that you never really know what someone is or isn't doing. You never really know what someone is or is not experiencing. It's super easy to like try to scapegoat your friends or your whoever you feel that is out there doing or not doing something that you want them to do. You never know what someone's going through. And I think that that's where the grace comes in. And a really important thing to remember at this full moon is that because we have a full moon in Aries, we may be trying to convince people towards our own point of views. We may be very loud about what we think people should and shouldn't be doing, especially as we get closer towards an election. And to me, you can only be as good as the center that you bring to something. If you're not centered, you're not going to be able to make change. If you aren't peaceful in your heart, you aren't going to be able to bring peace to your communities. And it is a constant adjustment battle. I don't know if that's the right word. In my own experience, to try to maintain that center. I have strong feelings and emotions about things, very strong feelings and emotions. And I have strong opinions about things that I try not to force on people. I'll force the climate change agenda on this channel till my dying breath, but to me, that's not a political opinion. That's just, let's figure this out as a community. But being able to try to remain centered, I think, is a rebellious act on some level in a society that is always trying to trigger some kind of conflict and confrontation. I think actually trying to be peaceful is a radical act. And that might be part of what this full moon is asking for us as well, is how do we bring a radical sense of centered and peacefulness to a chaotic world? And again, that's the challenge of Nemesis. That's the challenge of checking the balances of, or the random distributions of fate and fortune that 2K likes to wreak havoc. I see Mars in Cancer, honestly. That's like 2K or chance at its most difficult. Mars being the planet of Kake 2K, right? Bad fortune. And it's just very, very unpredictable in Cancer. And it requires even more centeredness to move forward around that period. All right, yes, today is our Cap Moon party. Candy Corn says, I wonder if when Rahu shifts into Pisces, we will be more focused on the systems that work. They may not be perfect, Virgo, but good enough and not something we should take for granted. I think that that's a possibility. With the South Node hanging out with Virgo, change and releasing old systems that aren't working will be important. And surrendering and acceptance, I think, is going to be important as well. There's going to be an increase in our need to surrender to a divine plan rather than the human plan on some level. So I could absolutely see that happening. Ani says, equilibrium of the mind. The greatest acts of defiance are education and good health, right? Education. The equilibrium of the greatest acts of defiance are education and good health. Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, so that's our kind of big T-square. Let's take a look at some of the pieces here again. Before I do that, let's take a little stretch. Let's get a little drink of water. Let's get everything that we need. Do me a huge favor. Please like and subscribe. I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer today. It's been a hard week. A lot of times the ability that we have to let our sensitivities, to center ourselves through our sensitivities and things like that, our ability to do that when we're taxed emotionally can be difficult. I wouldn't say that I'm having the greatest week, so I have some less fucks to give today, to be honest with you, friends. I have less of that ability to put up with crap. Just being honest. So do me a huge favor. I'm glad that you're still here. We're getting real today at Spencer Michaud Astrology, and please just do me a huge favor. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the newsletter. That's when you know when we're going to be going live again, when our live streams are going to be happening once again. And forgive me for not being at my best today. And hopefully we're still providing you with some value and getting where we need to go. Yeah. No worries. Candy Corn says, the sun in Libra will be sitting on top of my Venus. Oh my goodness. No filter. Go for it. Yeah. It is, we all have our public filters, our public personas. One of the things that I aspire to on this channel is to be the best version of myself, or the kindest version of myself. And it is, when you're feeling grief, when you're feeling not only grief, but personal grief, but collective grief, knowing what to do with that and to work through that can be challenging. But I appreciate all of you. We'll turn it around today, and we will get where we need to be for this full moon. I think that the way that things have gone so far in the live stream is a little bit indicative of what we are going to be experiencing at this full moon. So one thing I wanted to talk about with the sun in Libra 3 is we do have a fixed star here called Arcturus at 24 degrees of Libra. So we want to break this down in individual pieces. And we have the sun in that decan. Okay, I'll show you the Libra 3 decan webinar slide. It's on sale for 20% off if you want to support the channel. But we've been talking about adjustments, restoring right proportion, nemesis, etc. So themes, the eye of the storm, making adjustments to maintain equilibrium, connecting with the hub of the wheel that we've been talking about today. Actions that stabilize the randomness of fortune. Receiving your due. That's an important theme that's related to the exaltation of Saturn in Libra, like receiving the consequences of your action for better or for worse. Mental discipline and poise. Try and be poised through difficult circumstances as part of a Libra 3 challenge. So what questions can you reflect upon for the solar journey that we're going through in Libra 3 at this full moon? Because I think that to be able to break down full moons, we really need to see what the conscious driving force that is illuminating the moon. All right, so the moon is a borrowed, reflected light. So yes, that is going to be the physical manifestation. It's going to manifest in a certain way, but the motivation for that manifestation comes from the sun. That's why we do this in this fashion. So what adjustments are necessary to maintain harmony? How can you find your center within an ever-changing cosmos? What excesses need consolidation and what lack needs increase? What gifts and challenges are your due? Where is your mental discipline required? And then finally, how can you bring your internal peace to an external environment? That's super important. That's a lesson that I've had to learn the hard way. I've often gone in search of peace through external means, through where I lived or like through my neighborhood. Like I'm the ultimate like curmudgeon neighbor type. Like if someone's making noise with like, heaven forbid, a gas-powered leaf blower or bullshit like that, I get really frustrated and annoyed. But I'm having to learn that peace comes from my own stability, not through every part of the external environment being quiet or peaceful or exactly the way that I would like it to be. So this is something that we're going to be bringing to the table here. Now, the Arcturus part of it is interesting. Let's look at that real quick. So here's Arcturus, and this is the plowman, right? This is the transition, representing the transition from a nomadic hunter-gatherer society to an agrarian one. So this could be allowing us visionary shifts in consciousness. Like maybe we're feeling inspired to be ingenious about how we move forward, new ideas to move forward. There might be some kind of pathfinder leadership ability that comes out of this. Now, the other thing that I think is important with this is that transition from hunter-gatherer to agrarian society, we can argue whether that was a good transition or not, to be honest with you. A lot of the ills of modern, climate change, et cetera, come from becoming an agrarian society. But what I will say is that the theme of civility, of becoming domesticated on some level, is important on this fixed star. And you can take that theme and apply it to your life. Like, where might you be feeling a raw emotion, a raw experience of something where you might benefit from learning some social graces, learning some cooperation, learning some ways to tap into your higher, more mature self or your more cooperative self. Now, there will be times when tapping into the more raw part of yourself is important, the more instinctual part. But this Arcturus part is giving us the opportunity to tap into our social graces. Aaron, thank you so much for the super sticker. Appreciate you, friend. I hope that that this has been helpful for you today. And really, I feel for you with that Libra rising and having that big cardinal cross hanging out there. And I hope that everything is well your way, because I know my cardinal friends are getting hammered right now. My beautiful partner is a Capricorn rising, so she's going through it from a little bit of a different angle. But yeah, thank you so much for that generosity. Painted Turtle says, I feel for you and your partner, Spencer. It's tough losing a family member, especially a parent. I, for one, wouldn't mind moving that date if you guys need it. Just throwing that out there. The moon dignities. I appreciate that. That was a discussion that we had this week, but we powered through. It's kind of too late now. Um, One thing I will say is if you want to support us, like we worked really hard on this, so if it would be awesome to see you there, friends, for the webinar. I do think that despite the challenges, we Capricorn mooned it, and you know, we're resilient and created a really nice presentation. Um, I think that we had to have communication around our expectations, you know, because there's sort of a work cry balance that you have to have when you're going through something like this. Uh, but I think that ultimately it's going to be uh, an excellent presentation, and I'm I'm sad that the introduction that a lot of you will get to Tanya is maybe with her at one of her maybe lower points, but I can't stress enough that she is an extremely talented teacher, um, astrological mage. Um, she is an amazing person, and a person that I've really been able to count on when the chips are down in my life. And the fact that she's been able to help put together an incredible presentation while simultaneously dealing with her grief is a testament to who she is as a person. And yeah, just I am super excited that she's a part of this. And again, I hope that you'll help support not only my own work, but her work through this as well. Aaron says, thanks, Spencer. I will survive. I have Spica and Arcturus on my side. Thank you for your work and your contributions to the astrology community. You're the best. Oh, thank you, Aaron. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Comments like that keep me going. You know, I appreciate you. And I'm really grateful for the community that we have here. We have some really amazing people who are generous not only with their resources, but with their spirit. So thank you so much for being a part of it, Aaron. Okay, so we've got Libra Sun on Arcturus. And now let's take a look at the host of this. So we have the host. Let's go back to the chart, and we will look at the Venus as the host of the Sun. Okay, we're going to look at the host of both the Sun and the Moon here and see what that might be able to teach us. So here we have Venus hosting the Libra Sun. Okay, but from a position of aversion. This is a position where we aren't going to be able to have Venus witnessing the Sun during this full moon. The good news about that is that Venus will ingress into Sagittarius the same day as the full moon. So even though this full moon is going to perfect with Venus still at the very last degrees of Scorpio, very shortly after this full moon, Venus's condition improves significantly by traditional dignity. So going through that grief period, going through that release, that can give us the ability to find new vehicles for our enthusiasm. Venus is going to be moving into a decan of Sagittarius associated with enthusiasm, with finding a new vehicle, body, host for our passion. So that to me is one of the best parts of this full moon, is the fact that Venus is very shortly after the moon becomes full is going to move into Sagittarius. That is good for a number of reasons. Not only is Venus moving out of its exile, out of a Mars-ruled sign, it's going to move into a Jupiter-ruled sign, okay, a benefic, okay, and it is going to be able to witness the Sun once again, provide its resources. Now, it's not completely out of the woods because Venus is going to be in an opposition to its host, Jupiter, retrograde Jupiter, in its exile. So it's still not drawing upon the greatest of resources. And again, this is something we'll talk about tomorrow in our Dignity and Devotion webinars. What is the quality of resources that a planet is drawing upon in the guest-host relationship? I would say that a retrograde Jupiter in its exile, I'd probably prefer that, I guess, than a fallen Mars if it was just me, although Mars does have triplicity dignity. So your mileage may vary with that, but I think in general, it's a good rule of thumb that when a planet is moving through a benefic house, it is easier to deal with than when it is moving through a malefic one. Tom says, my birthday is tomorrow. Tom, but my 85th solar return is this AM. Tom, happy birthday, my friend. My goodness. You're coming off of your Uranus return, buddy. Well, I hope that everything is going well for you, Tom. And that is quite an accomplishment, being able to have 85 revolutions around this planet. And I hope that your 85th year, or 86th year, I guess I should say, will treat you well. It's a lot of energy to have in the solar return, right? A lot of interesting energy that we're talking about today. So this is almost like a mini solar return reading on some level. So Tom, enjoy yourself. Have a great birthday. Have a great solar return. And many happy returns to you moving forward. Yeah, happy birthday, bud. Okay, so that's the host of the sun. Venus in aversion, difficulty getting what we need, but the improvement of that condition shortly after the full moon. Now, let's take a look at the moon. So the moon is going to be in Aries III, very close to Chiron. And this might be something where we are needing to share our passion. The spirit in Aries III is Eros. Okay, so if we look here, here's our Aries III Decan flashcard, webinar slide. Setting hearts aflame, gaining a following, sex appeal, seduction, erotic desire, temporary refuges, fleeting passions. This is a decan of oases on some level, before a much longer journey. Hesed and Atziluth, which is a Kabbalistic sphere of life from the Tree of Life, the flow of inspiration. Hoch, or Hesed, is a Jupiter-ruled Sephira that talks about abundance. So this abundance of passion, charisma, glamour magic, dramatic abilities, winning over the hostile crowd. So things you could ask yourself: how can you tap into your personal magnetism to motivate or attract? How can you use diplomacy and tact to get what you want? How can you celebrate who you've become? What methods might inspire people to see things your way? And is this relationship permanent or a torrid affair? Finally, how can you gather strength for the long road ahead? Because remember, this is a temporary resting place. Now we have Chiron here too. It's Chiron. The asteroids are not something I necessarily use a ton in my forecast, but I think it's close enough that it is worth mentioning that Chiron tends to be sort of a wound that is difficult to heal, that we may be trying to help through, I think, honestly, through projection. I would say my experience of Chiron is it's something that we have difficulty healing in ourselves, but that we always try to help others with on some level. So there might be some feelings of feeling nervous about trying to sell your wares, your goods, etc., yourself, your viewpoint to other people. There could be some reluctance to put forth your own opinion, etc. Oftentimes I avoid controversial topics because honestly, it's at the end of the day, it creates more work for me. Do you know what I mean? When we get into conflicts with people, we have to do the hard, dirty, messy work of trying to come to consensus. And sometimes that's appropriate and we absolutely need to. But having to do it all the time can be very draining and exhausting and unproductive. So I think that this is a good reminder to choose your battles. Chiron here, we may be feeling a little bit like, well, I should speak up for this particular thing to win over this person, but I'm a little bit nervous about it. So, and it could lead to conflict. I mean, with Mars and Chiron square, like that is a potential conflict. But if you choose the things that are most important to you, try to tap into the drawing in versus calling out I think you may have more success with that. Now, when we go back to the host, okay, let's look at our chart once again. One thing that is pretty fascinating here is our host is Mars. So Mars is providing resources to the moon, but we also have the moon providing resources to Mars. That is a condition called mutual reception. Now, they are squared with one another, so there's tension. But mutual reception is interesting. Mutual reception is sort of like these planets exchanging homes. So, like, let's say you've got someone in your home that you're not super thrilled about, but you're in their home, and it would benefit one another to treat each other with respect, tell people where things are, give them the keys, etc. So I don't think that the moon is super comfortable in Aries either. That's a place of conflict. But we have this ability potentially with the mutual reception with Mars and the moon to have some kind of beneficial relationship even in difficult circumstances, especially with Mars in its fall. So we may have our energy levels may be low. We may be experiencing twists and turns of fate where we're at the bottom of the wheel of fortune, but we have this ability to be resilient. We have this ability to utilize our passion, our eros, to win over the support that we need. So that to me is a nice little bonus, I think, to this full moon, is that mutual reception between those two. It might be worse if we had Mars hosting, let's say a different planet that was not in mutual reception. That Mars could be creating more trouble potentially. Now, the square between a planet's host and itself isn't super fun. Like, it is, Mars is in the overcoming position to the sun, which I think that if let's see. So here's a new way to think about things. When we have a planet that is said to be on the 10th, that's what we see when we have a planet that is 10 signs away. Okay, you can see here in this random Libra rising chart, the moon is, or this Mars is 10 signs away from the sun. And it is in a position where it is chasing the sun. Think about this as a person who is being chased in a car chase, and Mars is in the back position, is able to see forward, and the sun is having to look backwards at a disadvantage. So our ability to maintain our equilibrium, our harmony, is being stressed by Mars in Cancer in this chart, whereas the moon is in the overcoming position to Mars. So that may also give us some insight into what can help us moving forward too. Again, our social graces, our humor, our charisma can help alleviate some of those challenges potentially. And as we've been talking about, we've got all of these planets in this big grand cardinal cross being pulled in a lot of different directions. We've got Mars and Pluto posing off with one another. We've got the sun and the moon at a crossroads, at an opposition. So we may have a lot of energy towards wanting to initiate things, but we're trying to start a lot of different things under duress. So give yourself some grace. Recognize that you might not be able to do everything that you want to do all at once, and we'll get through it together. So here, as we are moving forward off of the full moon day, let's take a look at some of the first aspects. As I was mentioning before, we also have the sextile between Venus and Pluto right before Venus is ingressing into Sagittarius. And you can see this on the outer rim here, okay? So maybe we will get an experience of that toilet unclogging experience, you know, and releasing some of the old forms. Maybe we release the toilet with the plunger and then we flush everything and clean up the bathroom, and then we're like, hey, okay, it's clean, it's exciting, you know. So that might be part of the way that we things go down here. The first aspect that the moon is going to make is a sextile to retrograde Saturn at 13 degrees of Taurus. to 13 degrees of Pisces. The first aspect that we see is often a technique that traditional astrologers would utilize to see, what is the vibe of this lunation, new moon, full moon, etc. Is it going to be a really difficult one, or is it going to be a little bit easier to work through? Now, any contact with a malefic planet like Mars or Saturn is going to bring about its challenges, but it is a harmonious sextile. We may get support through understanding the limitations of our dream, okay? This is what Saturn is encouraging us to do. It says, hey, you need a container for all those emotions. You need a container for those dreams. You need to get practical about some of them. And I think that when the moon is going to make that sextile in a decan that it's very, very supported in. Okay, this is a decan that has dignity by exaltation for the moon, dignity by face or decan. If it's a night chart, it'll have dignity by triplicity, I believe. So a really empowered moon that will be making a harmonious relationship with our limitations. So I think that the balance of bringing something into fruition while under duress and under difficult circumstances is a part of this. And I think that that's great. Sometimes we just have to adjust our expectations and we can still manifest something really positive. So that's the 18th. Yeah, everybody's giving happy birthdays to Tom. Yes, congrats, Tom. Yes, happy birthday, friend. Dimphy's going to take off. Thanks, Dimphy. You don't have to be the best, just be rooted in yourself. Thanks, Dimphy. Appreciate that. Appreciate you. Lauren says, happy birthday, Thomas. 85 is so special. Hope it's the best solar return yet. Me too, Tom. That is quite an achievement. So if we are taking a look at how this might unfold for the next week here, we've got the 22nd. And I go into depth in the Astrology of October if you want to check that out. But we'll just do a little brief kind of rundown for the aspects that are coming. We're going to see, and of course, that the transits are on the outside. The full moon itself is on the inner ring, just if you have any confusion around that. On the 22nd, we've got Mercury trining Saturn. Okay, maybe some real positive conversations around concretizing our dreams, and especially how we merge with others in deep emotional ways. The mutual distillation that Austin Coppock talks about in 36 Faces. The exchange of either support or of toxins. So we may be getting a Saturnian check-in with Mercury in that particular decan on the 22nd. While simultaneously, the sun is going to be squaring Pluto, just like Mercury did. So it might be a repetition of some of the themes that we experienced with Mercury squaring Pluto, and now we're going to see the sun squaring Pluto. This is also often a time that we see people in leadership positions having some kind of exposure of corruption, where we're really trying to, I think that we may see some manipulation in the news that has to be reckoned with or dealt with. So just be careful of that in your own life. Like, leadership works better if you show people the way and allow people to follow of their own volition rather than trying to strong arm them into doing something that you want them to do. And this aspect can be a part of that and coming to terms with that. So after that, we see, the same day, basically, okay, 22nd and 23rd, we've got the sun ingressing into Scorpio. So that's actually quite an improvement for the condition of the sun. It's out of its fall. And it is now trining its ruler, Mars, in Cancer. Now, all is not perfect. Like, the resources that Mars is providing are not of the highest quality, but Mars is still in I believe it's in its triplicity. Okay, so it'll have some support. I'm just looking at my little thing here. Well, maybe not in this particular, in the nighttime, I think it would be. But by day, let's see. Oh, never mind. Hold on a second. There we go. Maybe it's by night, right? Let me see. I've got my handy dandy chart from Chris Brennan in the Astrology podcast here. we have, yes, the triplicity lord of the night for Cancer is Mars. So we do have some night triplicity support from Mars. So do your work at night, I guess is what I will say with this. You might have more support, in the nighttime hours potentially. But I do think that the focus is going to shift. It's going to shift from nice social niceties, trying to find the right balance, to just feeling our feelings, to identifying the forms that will need to be released, maybe identifying hunger, okay, like that where we are addicted to something or where we hunger for things, where our needs are not necessarily getting met. That's one of the challenges of Scorpio 1 is this feeling of not being able to be satiated. So the sun shines a big spotlight on that. But that will help us to understand where to release desires, where to release our attachment to form, okay? And as we get to the 24th here, we will see the moon moving into a square with the sun. Okay, if we go back here, we'll go to the actual aspect. Here it is. So here is the moon in Leo, squaring the Scorpio sun. And this is just helping us to let go of a feeling of pressure, I think. Last quarter moons help us release things. And the moon in Leo 1, that's a Saturn decan in a solar sign. And we feel the pressure to perform. And one of the things that Scorpio does is it strips us of the artifices of Libra, right? It strips us of the masks, the beautiful, it strips the leaves from the trees, and we're laid bare on some level. We're naked in Scorpio season. And I think that having to release our performed personalities around this last quarter moon is going to be important. We all have certain personas that we perform publicly, and sometimes just through grief, we're able to the walls and the veils come down on some level. So I think that could be part of the experience here. And then, finally, we have two more things. We have Mercury emerging as the evening star at 16 degrees. You can see that happening here at about 15 degrees of separation between the sun and Mercury. This is an improvement for Mercury's condition. This is messages that we may receive at a moment of phasis, where Mercury becomes visible in the evening sky. And we may become really aware of how intertwined we are with others and be able to communicate and renegotiate some of those, I don't know if codependence is the right word, but it might be, those exchanges, those circuits of exchange. We may be able to start renegotiating those around this period of time. So that is the emergence. And then finally, we have Venus moving out of bounds. So this is a fun one, right? Here's Venus right on Antares, a fixed star in Sagittarius, stationing out of bounds, or not stationing, but moving out of bounds from the 25th of October to December the 3rd. So this is an opportunity for us to reevaluate what we desire through exploration of things that maybe outside of what we normally are attracted to. Okay, so this is gives us the ability to pursue some passions. I would be careful of that though, because I think sometimes we can get us into a little bit of conflict or trouble if we pursue relationships or desires that are too inappropriate. But this is a great way to explore a creative process as well, where you might not feel limited by social expectation. That's one of the things about an out-of-bounds planet. It's released from the authority of the king, the sun, because it moves outside of its normal declination range. So explore desires between now and then. Explore a creative process. And hopefully that will bring you some insight into what you need to feel the catharsis that Venus can bring about. Venus was associated with being responsible for the cathartic element of the Greek theater in ancient Greek culture. So how are we coming into touch with releasing pent-up feelings through our art, through our creativity, through our relationships, etc. So that's an opportunity there. So we'll break that down in more depth as we move along, but it's important to sort of be aware that that's coming. All right, friends. So we are going to end today with a hexagram. So here is our hexagram, number 9. And number 9 translates to, one moment. Hexagram number 9 translates to restraint. It translates to small accumulation, the taming power of the small. Restraint of the powerful by the weak. That's interesting. We've been talking about themes like that today. Small farming, taking care of the little things. Accumulation of small advantages over time. Using gentleness and friendly persuasion. That sounds a lot like Aries III. Temporarily held back, but rain will come. So there is a theme that they talk about. Small accumulation, success, dense clouds, but no rain from the outskirts of our western region. I'm going to read you an excerpt from Jack Balkin's translation, The Laws of Change. It says, rain symbolizes nourishment, release of tension, and success. Dense clouds offer the promise of eventual rain. However, the rain has not yet fallen. Hence, there is nothing to do but wait for events to play themselves out. The situation is not unfavorable. There is the promise of success in the long run, but circumstances currently prevent you from doing much to bring your plans to fruition. Your advance is blocked by factors that you are not fully aware of. Although this may be frustrating, you should maintain a realistic attitude. Even though the barriers to progress seem minor and frustratingly trivial, do not underestimate them. Exercise caution. There is considerable potential in the situation, but your position is not yet secure. Do not try to force the issue. Instead, do all that you can now to prepare in small ways for the eventual breakthrough. Pay careful attention to the everyday questions. Be meticulous and painstaking in your efforts. Plan ahead for the future. Gather information and discuss the situation with others. Accumulate whatever small advantages you can. And it talks about doing this through gentle persuasion, friendly behavior, right? Through restraint, through maybe limiting our expectations through things as well. So that's our hexagram, and with no changing lines. So I think that this is I really feel this is related to a lot of different things, but this full moon is a period before election season in America. We have this, we have all the elements that are ready, like all the clouds are gathering and we're just waiting for rain. We're waiting for a release. We may have things in our life that have been accumulating that we're waiting for that release. And here we're just, being able to prepare for that. The release is going to come. Just be patient about the release. Do your small preparations, and that'll help you get through it. Now, the animal that I have for you is interesting because this one talks about leaps and bounds. I got the grasshopper for you today. And the grasshopper, I think, is very interesting because it really does talk about the balance between stillness and making great leaps of progress. I think that with the combination of this hexagram and with this animal, we may have to be still for a period, but then leap into the next situation, leap into the unknown, leap into our futures. The beautiful thing about grasshoppers is that there's over 1,000 species of grasshoppers, and they are all very unique. And Grasshopper talks about our uniqueness and encourages us to embrace our uniqueness. It sounds very Aries moon on some level, right? So we have to be part of a society, but we also have to stand out in our own way and figure out how we are going to be true to ourselves while we are moving through these changes and while we're moving through cooperation. So really, this is about taking a new, unique approach to past problems, potentially, maybe leaping out of the way of danger as well, and being able to appreciate the uniqueness of each individual. You are a unique individual. I'm a unique individual. We are all unique individuals who are trying to live together on this planet in this moment in history. Do we all agree on everything 24/7? No. But we're all trying to figure out how to survive. We're all trying to figure out how to thrive. And by sharing our own unique gifts, perspectives, etc., that's what we create a beautiful, diverse, strong culture, right? When we have homogenization, if you look at nature, homogenization is a death knell. A diversity of our genetic material is important for the strength that continues on. You know, the diversification of our perspectives, of being able to discuss things from multiple viewpoints is important and brings strength to our communities. So try to open your hearts, open your ears, hear things from multiple perspectives, share your perspective without trying to force others to your point of view. Bring them over through your charisma, through your humor, and then make the leap, right? So that's what I have for you today. Thank you so much, friends, for being here today. I'm just checking back in on the chat. We're going to check in here. We've got, let's see, do me a huge favor, like and subscribe. We've got a few comments here. Painted Turtle says, that reminds me of Austin Kopek's noted Aries III is a common spot for motivational speakers. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely like the Tony Robbins type, like a coach giving a halftime speech, like let's say you're down at halftime of a football game. This is just a random example, but you're trying to get people inspired to go out and like win the game. That's true as well. So yeah, being able to be passionate about what you believe in is important without forcing that on other people. I think that's the challenge, right? Aaron says, wow, that seems like really excellent advice for our current time. Yeah, the I-Ching and the animals, I've just found a lot of truth through that. So I'm just in debt to those symbols coming up when they come up. And thank you, Laura, friend. Thank you, Tom. Happy birthday to you, friend. Do me a huge favor, friends. Go check out the offerings that we have. Our Dignity and Devotion webinar is tomorrow, Saturday, October 12th, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Go sign up for that. The Hobbit Book Club starts Monday, October the 14th. That's going to be super fun. Hopefully a lighthearted diversion from some of the more challenging things that we're experiencing. Would love to have you be a part of that. And then finally, if you feel like you missed out on the Decan Walk, we'll still open that space up for you. And if you're interested in the fall class bundle with the bonus Mythos reading, reach out. Email me at spencermichaudastrology@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to work something out with you. All right, my friends, that's what I've got for you today. Take care. We'll see you. See you, Susanna, at the Hobbit Book Club. It's going to be so much fun, friend. And at the webinar, thank you, Lauren, for being here. And Laura and Lauren, we've got both of them here today. Thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon. Try to be kind to one another if you can. Be kind to yourself. There's a lot of energy going around. You know, if your best is like 30% of your normal best, that's okay. You're doing your best in that day. That's one of those 4 agreements, right? But try to give people around you some grace. You never know what someone's going through. And sometimes they share what they're going through, and other times they just are living a more private experience. So giving people the benefit of the doubt, I think, is really important in times like this. So that's what I'll leave you with today. Have a good one, and we'll see you the next time. Peace.